Tonight, accused murderer Greg Lynn takes a stand in his own defence, insisting he didn't murder two Victorian campers. Peter Costello denies assaulting a journalist at Canberra Airport. The King joins veterans to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. And the secrets to a successful relationship revealed by looking at the love lives of swans. Hello and welcome to ABC Late News. I'm Jade Barker. We begin tonight with a breaking story. A massive search is underway for high-profile TV medic Dr. Michael Mosley, who's gone missing while on holiday in Greece. Dr. Mosley vanished after a hike on the island of Symi. His agent confirmed his disappearance to UK media. We'll bring you more on this story as information comes to hand. Accused murderer Greg Lynn has given evidence in his own double murder trial, telling the jury his actions in covering up the deaths of two elderly campers were despicable. But under intense questioning from prosecutors, the former pilot has maintained that he didn't murder the couple.
Taking his case into his own hands, the eyes of the Supreme Court were on Greg Lynn as the former pilot stepped into the witness box. Mr Lynn said the deaths of Carol Clay and Russell Hill at this campsite were not his fault. "I am innocent. I haven't killed anyone," Mr Lynn said. He claims Miss Clay was accidentally shot in the head as he struggled with Mr Hill over a gun. He says he then acted in self-defence as Mr Hill came at him again with a knife and inadvertently stabbed himself. Under questioning from his barrister Dermot Dan, Mr Lynn described it as a horrendous scene and said it was despicable that he then destroyed evidence and dumped the campers' bodies here under a pile of sticks. Loved ones of Russell Hill and Carol Clay watched on as Mr Lynn told the court, "All I can say to the families is that I'm very sorry for your suffering." But the prosecutor accused him of lying and murdering the retirees. "You murdered Mr Hill. What do you say?" "That's not true." "You took aim at Mrs Clay. You shot at her multiple times." "That's not true." Greg Lynn says the dispute started because he didn't like Mr Hill flying this drone, and Mr Hill also didn't want Mr Lynn hunting close to their campsite. Mr Lynn says things escalated when the 74-year-old stole his shotgun. "You could have just started up your vehicle. You could have simply driven away. He had stolen something of mine and I wanted to get it back." Despite some fiery questions, Greg Lynn remained composed on the stand. He only appeared shaken once. He took a deep breath and admitted he'd lied to his wife when he pretended that he had nothing to do with the camper's demise. Mr Lynn said his career as a pilot meant he could stay calm under pressure, but he says he panicked at the campsite and believed he'd wrongly be blamed. "Clearly things are worse for me now. It's a disaster, and it would have been a disaster if I had gone to the police." Mr Lynn has pleaded not guilty to murder, but he concedes he is guilty of destroying evidence by putting the campers' bodies in his trailer and returning to set fire to the remains. After 4 weeks, evidence in the trial has now finished. The jury could be sent out next week. Christian Silva, ABC News, Melbourne.
Nine Entertainment chairman Peter Costello has denied assaulting a journalist from The Australian at Canberra Airport. Video posted on the masthead's website appears to show reporter Liam Mendes approaching Mr Costello and asking him questions about a harassment scandal at Nine. The footage shows Mr Costello walking towards Mr Mendes, who then falls backwards.
You've got to answer the questions, Mr Costello. Don't. You've just assaulted me.
When I came through Canberra Airport, there was a reporter walking backwards with his phone filming. As I walked past him, he backed into an advertising placard and he fell over. I did not strike him. If he's upset about that, I'm sorry.
Greens leader Adam Bandt is threatening legal action against the Attorney-General over comments linking him to violence at pro-Palestinian rallies. Here's National Affairs Editor Melissa Clark.
Labor MPs are frustrated by protests at their electorate offices, where there has been graffiti, property damage and physical confrontations.
You only need to look at the sort of things that Greens are posting on social media and their attendance at the blockades of MPs' offices.
Federal and state Greens MPs have encouraged people to protest.
So please come and join them outside Prime Minister Albanese's office.
But Labor has also accused the Greens of inciting violence.
You're not a party of peace if you're out there inciting aggression, violence, violent protests.
We backed the organisers' calls that there should not be vandalism or similar. We have been crystal clear on that.
Labor hasn't shown a specific incident where the Greens have directly encouraged violence. The Greens leader has threatened legal action against Attorney General Mark Dreyfus for suggesting it.
My lawyers have written to the Attorney General regarding what I consider to be defamatory statements.
The Greens have used social media to press the politics.
Labor is complicit and cowardly in this mission of genocide that Israel is conducting against Palestinians.
And make highly charged claims about complex issues.
They've said we're selling weapons to Israel when we're not. They say that we support genocide when plainly that is a completely offensive and distressing thing to say.
Even discussing a ceasefire becomes febrile.
We voted many months ago with over 150 other countries for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire.
What they've called for is a humanitarian ceasefire so that there's a pause so that people can be fed and then the bombing can start again.
As the war in Gaza drags on, the political debate here has deteriorated, raising concerns about the cues protesters take from it and the impact it has on community cohesion.
It's appearing like a signal, like a beacon going out, and it's whipping up a mob who are then protesting.
Hopes for de-escalation abroad and at home. Melissa Clark, ABC News, Canberra.
The National Anti-Corruption Commission won't launch fresh investigations into 6 public officials involved in the robo-debt scandal. 500,000 Australians were targeted by the robo-debt scheme, which unlawfully raised debts of more than $1.7 billion against social security recipients. The Royal Commission's final report had included a sealed chapter recommending further civil or criminal action against people involved in the scheme. It was provided to the Anti-Corruption Commission, which says it won't pursue its own action as it's unlikely to uncover anything new about the officials' conduct. 40 years after they were abolished, the New South Wales government has formally apologised for laws that criminalised homosexual acts. Alexander Lewis has his report.
So today we are sorry.
Contrition filled the chamber where an expression of love was made a crime.
We're sorry for every person convicted under legislation that should never have existed.
Watching the apology was Blue Mountains couple Terry Goldrin and John Greenway, who've been together for 55 years.
It actually felt like a sort of like a burden off my shoulders.
Mr Goldrin was charged twice for homosexual acts. One time he was baited on a South Sydney beach by, in his words, a pretty police officer.
He was in a very brief Speedo costume, not in his police uniform. And he said, would you like to take it out?
Just over 40 years ago, consensual sex between men was listed as an unnatural offence under the Crimes Act. The abominable crime of buggery, as it was called in the statute, was punishable by up to 14 years jail. In May 1984, a private member's bill sponsored by Labor Premier Neville Wran removed that section.
The homosexual reforms were finally passed, 63 votes to 34.
Robert French agitated for change, including as part of a gay rights embassy outside Premier Wran's home.
And said, "Good evening, Mr Premier," only to be replied or greeted with a very angry "bugger off."
I want to place on record my personal thanks to those activists who risked everything to make things easier for people like me. I said I wasn't going to cry.
Gay rights now! Just as activists protested outside Parliament 40 years ago, today's campaigners kept the pressure on the Premier.
Because the Christian right has him by the balls!
The Premier is being urged to back up his apology with action and support legislation that would stop teachers and students being kicked out of religious schools for being gay, as well as giving transgender people the right to register a change of sex without undergoing gender affirmation surgery.
Get out of our bedrooms
Get out of our pants and let us live our lives.
The fight for equality not over yet. Alexander Lewis, ABC News, Sydney.
One of the accused murderers of Perth schoolboy Cassius Turvey has applied for a separate trial on charges of detaining and assaulting another teenager in the days before the alleged attack. 15-year-old Cassius died in hospital 10 days after he was alleged to have been attacked with a metal pole as he walked with friends in Perth East on October 13, 2022. 4 people are charged with his murder, including 23-year-old Jack Brealey, who is also accused of an attack on another 15-year-old boy. All the charges are due for trial in February next year, but the Supreme Court has been told Mr Brealey wants the cases to be separated. His application will be heard by a judge in August. Violence has erupted at Israel's annual Jerusalem Day march, with some Jewish Israelis attacking Palestinians and journalists. Middle East correspondent Alison Horn reports from the Old City in Jerusalem.
I'm standing at the entrance of the Muslim quarter in the Old City of Jerusalem. Usually this is an area that would be teeming with Palestinians, but today they've all been moved out of this area to make way for thousands of far-right Israelis and Jews to march through the streets, marking Israel's capture of East Jerusalem in 1967. Before the march even started, tensions were running high, with confrontations between Palestinians and Israelis inside the Muslim quarter. Journalists were abused, including myself and my crew. I was hit in the face. We were pushed and verbally abused by some young Israelis taking part. We've been hearing some Israelis chanting offensive slogans like "Death to Arabs" and songs about burning Arab villages down. This annual march, the Flag March, is seen as a celebration for Israelis and for some, their supremacy over this area and this land, which Palestinians want as the capital of a future Palestinian state. For Palestinians, this is an offensive provocation in the ongoing Israeli occupation of East Jerusalem, according to international law.
It's chaos, and Palestinians are getting beaten. And even me, they beat in the legs in front of the police.
What occupation? It's ours. The land of Israel was given to the people of Israel.
Rights groups in Israel had tried to block this particular section of the march going into the Muslim quarter here in the Old City, fearful it would further escalate hostilities between Israelis and Palestinians.
King Charles has led Britain's commemorations for the 80th anniversary of D-Day, a pivotal moment in the Second World War. And with war raging on Europe's borders, this year carries special resonance.
A fitting backdrop for a moment of remembrance and reflection to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Sitting alongside royals and other dignitaries, veterans and their families, 99-year-old Roy Hayward is one of the few still alive. He lost his legs in the war.
I always considered myself one of the lucky ones that survived.
He and more than 150,000 other Allied troops, including thousands of Australians, set sail from Portsmouth in the largest ever military operation to liberate Nazi-occupied France, a major turning point of the Second World War.
Today we remember the bravery of those who crossed the sea to liberate Europe.
It is our duty to ensure that we and future generations do not forget their service and their sacrifice.
After the formalities, the royals charmed the crowd.
So you must be 100.
Oh, I'm 99.
99. Yes. It's amazing your hearing is so good.
Prince William is joining King Charles, with the pair travelling to France for more D-Day commemorations. It will be the King's first overseas visit since the palace revealed his cancer diagnosis in February. US President Joe Biden is also in France on a trip designed to underscore his commitment to US allies in Europe. In Normandy, paratroopers recreate the start of the D-Day landings.
My thoughts today are with those who fell on both sides.
Freedom at the cost of so many lives. Rani Hayman, ABC News, London.
A cost of living relief package of more than $250 million is the centrepiece of this year's South Australian budget. The Premier and Treasurer are framing the budget as one for the future, but the state's health system continues to be a significant pull on taxpayers. Here's Rory McLaren.
Climbing up to try and lower cost of living pressure on South Australians. The Malinowskis government's third budget doubling down on its second with a targeted $266 million relief package.
It allows us to provide more to those who need it most.
Included is $51.5 million for an additional one-off payment to concession holders to hit bank accounts before July 1. There's more than $54 million to expand the sports voucher program for families and $24 million to reduce the cost of school materials. The package is smaller than last year for a reason.
The federal government has provided much broader, more significant cost of living relief.
With SA's public hospital system still under an internal emergency, an extra $466 million has been needed in the last 6 months to keep it running.
Is health in South Australia a bottomless pit?
No, we're having to make the investments to keep up with demand and also the cost of providing these important services to the community.
Overall, nearly $1.9 billion in extra cash is required over the next 4 years just in operating expenses. That doesn't include investments in health upgrades like the new women's and children's. With an eye to the future, an additional $610 million will go on skills, on top of the previously announced $715 million for 3-year-old preschool.
Whenever we make the big decisions around the cabinet table, we are trying to think about the 2030s.
Which includes calls around housing. There's the axing of stamp duty for first home buyers building a new home, and the government is ready to step in to give more funds to SA Water if needed to provide services to developments.
But we're going to make sure that we calibrate what we're doing in conjunction with what SA Water's approved to do.
Debt will grow as infrastructure projects like the Torrens to Darlington start major work. It'll jump from $31.7 to $44.2 billion in 4 years' time.
A debt bomb that is going to be passed on to future generations of South Australians.
We wanted to see more for business, more for South Australians, and less debt as well.
We remain comfortable that debt is not only sustainable but affordable.
A $306 million surplus is expected in the current financial year, and surpluses are predicted across the whole budget period, fuelled by extra revenues, even with the state and national economies slowing over the last 12 months. Rory McLaren, ABC News.
Australia's first Indigenous-owned grid-connected solar farm has been officially opened in a remote Northern Territory community. Members of the Marlinja community helped to build the farm and battery, increasing the reliability of their power. Owning their farm is also expected to cut energy costs for the community's 60 residents by up to 70%. The community funded the project through $750,000 in benefactor donations. The NT government says it's also working to connect remote communities to solar power.
So for 72 communities across the Northern Territory that are on diesel generation, we want to get them to 70% renewable energy.
For many young people, retail offers plenty of opportunities, including workplace experience in their first job. But a new report shows it's often not a good one, with up to half of women and a quarter of men experiencing sexual harassment in the industry.
A few years ago, Hannah was excited to start an after-school job at a major retail chain, but she soon saw a dark side to the industry.
Everyone I knew that worked there had an experience with being sexually harassed at work, from like anything as small as just awkward comments that customers would make, or as severe as being stalked by customers and having some really scary experiences like that.
Hannah's experience at her former job is all too common, as new research from Sydney University confirms.
Retail workers describe sexual harassment as basically being part of the job, and that's the title of our report.
The findings couldn't be more timely, with recent allegations emerging at Country Road.
Sexual harassment is pervasive and it spreads across the different segments of retail.
The retail industry is the third largest employer in Australia. More than half the workforce are women, many of them teenagers. Researchers say this makes them more vulnerable to sexual harassment, and they're calling on employers to do more to protect their workers.
Clearly, this report is showing that they don't feel safe at work.
The boss of the Australian Retailers Association says in the case of harassment, the buck stops with management.
The CEO needs to make sure they've got confidence in their policies, their procedures. The culture becomes really important as well. So there's a culture of reporting.
Young retail worker Hannah also wants to see better training and procedures to report harassment.
I can't remember any training that I did that went through how to deal with customers that are making you feel uncomfortable.
Protections needed to make work safe. Nadia Daly, ABC News.
A climber has spent a cold night clinging to a ledge on a rock face at a popular tourist destination in the East Kimberley in WA. The climber, aged in their 20s, raised the alarm on Wednesday after becoming stuck halfway up the 150-metre high cliff near Lake Argyle, south of Kununurra. Authorities dropped supplies and blankets as the difficult terrain and conditions delayed retrieval efforts. Late on Thursday, a rescue helicopter winched the climber to safety. They're believed to be uninjured and in good spirits. Swans are one of the most monogamous animals in the world, but researchers have found the secret to their relationship success could be having regular breaks from each other.
OK, eyes on the uncollared birds.
For almost 2 decades, Melbourne University academics have been catching, tagging.
Did we get all 5?
I think we did.
Fantastic.
And safely releasing the black swans of Albert Park Lake.
OK, yep.
Swans are thought to be lifelong lovers, and researchers have found there's truth to the fairy tale. But
divorce is not uncommon, so about 10% of the swan pairs don't last. So we've got a pair that has been around and together since the beginning of the study, 18 years. Pretty good innings, and others that get together for a month or 2 and then decide, no, this is not for them.
Plus, cheating happens.
1 in 6 of the cygnets on the lake are fathered by a male from outside the pair bond.
And new movement tracking collars have now discovered that successful monogamous couples are more synchronised, doing the same thing at the same time. However, it doesn't get better over time.
Being together for a longer time doesn't actually make you more synchronous than partners that have been together for a year or 2.
And while some long-term pairs stay synchronised all year round, others fly away for a holiday.
These breaks would probably range for, on average, about 3 months over the non-breeding period before they would come back together before this sort of time of year now.
Researchers say they'll now focus on finding out why this happens, although they've observed both males and females leaving. Whilst the studies found that the sex lives of Australia's black swans is far more complicated than anyone thought, it's consistently found that the population here is really healthy despite being in the middle of suburbia and with a regular Grand Prix as well. But humans could be more careful.
We lose swans to collisions with cars every year. We spend more time than we wish we would extracting fish hooks.
So, apart from caring for black swans more, is there a lesson in love to take from swans?
I'm always a bit wary of extrapolating to humans in terms of animal behaviour, but I think they do remind us of what it's like to be in a monogamous human relationship, and especially I think this finding of birds spending time together and time apart is a sort of a reminder of that.
Iskander Razak, ABC News, Melbourne.
Queensland has levelled the Women's State of Origin series with an 11-10 win over New South Wales. A 68th minute field goal to Lauren Brown was delivered the Maroons one of their finest wins in Women's State of Origin history. The series will now head to Townsville for the decider. Alex de Minaur's best run at a French Open is over after a straight sets loss to German Alexander Zverev in the quarterfinals. The Australian was unable to convert his chances during the 3-hour match, but says he left his heart out on the court.
Big night for Australian tennis.
De Minaur month.
Hopefully that takes a lot of momentum and confidence onto the grass.
His innocence. The AT
coast with mostly clear skies elsewhere. We have two rain-bearing systems on the chart, a surface low off the east coast that's driving rain in New South Wales, and a cold front is sweeping the southwest of WA. In between, a high-pressure system directs dry southerly winds up north. Tomorrow's forecast in Queensland, dry, sunny and cool across the state with below average minimum temperatures as well. A sunny day for Brisbane reaching 20 degrees. In New South Wales, heavy rainfall along the Illawarra, Sydney and parts of the central tablelands, 19 degrees for Sydney, storms in Canberra, 15 your top. Staying cloudy across Victoria, scattered showers in the southeast. Melbourne, you should get to 17 degrees. In Tasmania, morning frost inland, staying fine across the state tomorrow. Hobart, 14 degrees. Another cold night for South Australia as well, with patchy frost about. Staying dry across the state tomorrow. Adelaide, you should get to 17. In Western Australia, a cold front will move east along the southern coast, bringing rain to the southwest again. Perth reaching 20 degrees. And up top, staying dry and sunny over northern WA. Overnight lows will plummet in the centre tonight. A little cooler in Darwin tomorrow, 29 degrees.
And that brings you up to date with ABC Late News for now. But for more at any time, you can head to our website, the address on screen there, or news.abc.net.au, or you can catch up on ABC iView. I'm Jade Barker. Thanks for your company.